Last week I heard a quote from a friend, and I think it resonates with how well we move forward in life. How quick we are to change the lane that we're in. For context, this was during the return of the old Fortnite map, and surprisingly there's some pretty strong real-life application of this principle he gave. If you're not familiar with Fortnite, by the way, just imagine it's any ordinary game. Now, contrary to the masses, Fortnite as a video game has been around for quite some time now. We hadn't played the game in a few years, and we were looking to dominate the game like we used to all those years ago, or so we thought, grinding and perfecting our ability to be the best at the game, just like everyone around. And going into our first few games, we were confident that with all the years we built up, we were going to win with ease. We were going to dominate the field like we used to. Now, contrary to what we expected, we got absolutely murked during our games. And even despite the countless hours we put into the game trying to become the best, we were never able to reach anywhere near the top. We were above average at best during our peak, but even then, we kept hanging on while everyone around us was becoming far greater than we could have ever imagined. It was a really difficult thing to digest at the time, going from something you're once so good at to absolutely sucking at, especially when you don't like losing at something. Being bad at a game is just an invitation to get addicted to it. Our skill and passion for the game that we once liked so much began to fade away. We kept hanging on without any success. We were like a ship being consumed by the ocean, and eventually, we quit. And while it might sound cowardly, it was the right thing for all of us to do at the end of the day. Fast forward to today, when we tried to play Fortnite for the first time in years, we realised it's not so easy to be a guy born after Gangnam Style was released back in 2012. And in frustration, my friend said something that I'd never taken into consideration before. Leave the game before the game leaves you. The game's left us before we left them. We held on to our problems for too long, just like many of you watching in your daily lives. And while it might sound silly, it really shined a lesson on the action we should have taken all those years ago. Quitting is never the most heroic thing to do. We're told our whole life that we should never give up, never give in. Sometimes persevering through something will bring us results at the end of the day. But in that moment, our growing hatred and dissatisfaction for what we were doing was a call for change. We were holding on to a ship that was already on its way out. The game left us before we left them. Obviously, when you have a winner's mentality, it's very hard to concede at anything, right? Fortnite is popular because it relies on that, especially when you're very good at getting second place. Again, that puts you second best. It's always going to push you to get that top spot. But nobody wants to appear defeated. You know, it's our ego. It's our interpretation of how most of us see ourselves. If people accepted defeat, we wouldn't have moved forward as a species. And obviously, when you're the generation above the 8-year-old playing Fortnite nowadays, it can feel brutal. To lose at something makes most of us feel like losers, even if we're still searching for our end goals. I'm going to share my channel as another example. When I started YouTube back in 2020, I had the urge to share my skills as a Fortnite player. Like many of you, I've always been inspired by the gaming videos that I've seen in the past, and I wanted to try it out for myself, you know, to see what it's like. Of course, during 2020, everyone was stuck inside, and nobody had their usual company to keep themselves busy. So with that in mind, I thought it was a great opportunity to try something new. Now, I was pretty good at the game during this time, obtaining many solo wins, competing in many tournaments. I was in my prime at Fortnite. Of course, when we look back at things we've done, they're usually a lot more modest than we had previously thought. The truth was, I wasn't anything insane at the game, but I was good enough to keep pushing alongside making videos about it. After making a couple videos, I really came to enjoy making YouTube videos, but during this time, I gradually began to grow resentment towards playing Fortnite. You know, the game was becoming too difficult, and no matter how much I tried, I couldn't keep up with the tide. I gave my Fortnite videos the best that I could, by the way, but I knew it's time to move on to the next big thing, to leave the game before the game leaves you. I gave it my all, and it's important that when you try something, you give it your all. If things don't work out, you move on. Once your interests fade, it's time to make a new start. It really hurt having that feeling of failure in what I was doing, but in reality, that was never really the case. You know, I learned a lot about video editing after making the first few videos, but I was ready to move on to bigger things. I didn't want to stay stagnant on something that was looking increasingly duller by the day, and even though I didn't have a PC to edit my videos on, I still tried. I still gave it everything I could with that iPhone and 10 minutes of Xbox game DVR. It was brutal, but eventually I moved over to Minecraft, and to this channel you're currently watching right now. Things began to click for me again. I managed to build a PC. My interest for making videos went back up. I found success in what I was doing, and my videos were doing numbers. And I was on top of the world at that point. I enjoyed making those Minecraft videos, and instead of mindlessly doom scrolling, I was actively trying to improve the quality of my videos. But had I not made the switch to making Minecraft content, I would have never known I was able to achieve the numbers I did. As modest as they are. If I didn't leave the game would have left me. I would have never made it to the point I am today, because otherwise I would have remained stagnant, and ironically I eventually reached that stage with my Minecraft content. Now, Minecraft content was in a pretty substantial decline during this time. You know, many people still played Minecraft, but they didn't necessarily watch as much of it like they used to. For me, that meant going from a couple couple hundred views to a couple thousand to 10,000s and back down to level 1. Obviously I had some experience in Minecraft, you know, a couple of years under my belt, and outside of Minecraft and Fortnite I didn't really know any other games to play. I'm not the most varied gamer in the world. It didn't really help when the only two games you played a good portion of and are good at are the only two choices that work on YouTube nowadays. I'm not the biggest gamer either. I just kind of play whatever I find most satisfying and stick with it. I'm not really good with changing things up. Honestly, I'm not really a fan of change altogether, which doesn't really help when it comes to switching things up and getting out of that rut that you end up being stuck in. During this time, I was quite reluctant to change the game I was playing. You know, I was still searching for that former success I had many months ago. I was clinging on to making Minecraft content, and while I did still have some glimmers of hope with some videos, it was nowhere near the peak that I'd reached. My channel was on the decline, and having not seen my former success really began to make me feel as though I hated making Minecraft videos. As much as I kept pushing my channel into the ground, before I knew it, the summer was up, and the game I was once so successful in was no longer a success for me. The game left me before I left the game. I was no longer consistent. I couldn't keep up with the pace that I had during my peak, and as a result, I was wasting my time getting nowhere. I was aiming for results instead of enjoyment, and when the reality was setting in, Minecraft was no longer sustainable for me, and I had to bounce. Now, of course, not all of it was a waste. I still learned many skills while editing my YouTube videos in general, but overall, things were not going my way for quite a while, despite everything I threw at it. You know, if hard work paid a lot, builders would be millionaires, right? Only losers give up trying. In many ways, that's what happens when you don't give up on goals that no longer have the same meaning as they used to. Now, by no means am I saying give up on what you're doing if you're bored, but finish what you've started. Reflect on how you felt about the work that you were pursuing, and then ask yourself, was it meaningful? Obviously, everyone has their ups and downs from time to time, but if you're finding yourself digging into an endless pit of nothing for long enough, yeah, sometimes the best thing to do is reflect on the goal you've set and whether or not it still aligns with your interests. If things were easy to achieve, everyone would be achieving them. If things were hard to achieve, very few would try. With that in mind, it's so easy to quit. You know, it's like bang, what's done is done, and that puts pressure. But distinguishing between unfulfillment and being stuck in a rut to find difficulty in what you're doing is vital, especially when you're choosing whether or not it's right to leave the game. And by no means is it easy to move on from something. Heck, had I quit making Minecraft content early, I would have never achieved the results that I did, as modest as they seem. Although I still enjoyed making those videos during that time, and while there are still some variables I hated doing, I still enjoyed putting the jigsaw together. And had things worked out the way they did, it would have been a no-brainer to have doubled down on something that actually worked. But if things don't work after a while, now's the time to make a change. I feel like staying in a rut is one of the most common mistakes people have made in human history. Of course, many to their own degree of severity, and a lot of it's down to your mentality and how you were brought up, but also how we were born differently to each other. And as much as we're all naturally come to leave the game eventually, I think understanding those scenarios of long-term fulfillment will give us more time to make that next big move, to put more effort into what you're doing that actually have meaning and fulfillment to us. So the next time somebody tells you to not give up on something, finish what you've started, reflect on whether or not the goals still align with you, and if things are going well long-term, consider doubling down, but if not, leave the game before the game leaves you. Anyway, I thought this was an interesting talk about our approach to life, and it's the first talk about life on this channel. So if you want to see more stories about life or like life advice, consider subscribing and feel free to share your stories down in my Discord. I'll leave you with some other videos you can go watch. If you like this video, let me know your thoughts down below, and maybe like this video. I don't know, it's up to you.